25th, 1995, the day of my high school graduation. Now, how many people besides me ever been to a high school graduation before? Come on, show me the whole armpit. Okay. Now, how many people besides me ever seen a high school before? I always get at least somebody with that, but fantastic. Well, my name was called, and as I walked across the stage, I heard that same round of applause that you folks just gave me, and as I approached the principal, he handed me my diploma, I shook his hand, and then I went off the stage back to my seat where Heather was sitting. To enjoy the rest of the ceremony and to watch the rest of my fellow classmates enjoy the ceremony as well. But then it happened. I saw something going on right over here on the stage that I believe nobody else in the audience was paying any attention to, Rick. There were about 10 or so students up on this stage that got to sit up here during the entire ceremony while the rest of us, people like me, we had to sit out there. Now, at the time, I didn't understand what was going on or why they were up there and why we were down there, but two things really stood out to me. The first thing was, these students up here, they represented about 90% of the class, while the people down here, where I was sitting, represented 90% of the class. And the other thing that really stood out to me, Jim, Neil, Jerry, is that these students, they seem to be pretty smart. Actually, they seem to be pretty smart than the ones that were out on the stage. But then, as soon as I realized that, I started to feel a little disappointed because I actually wanted to be up there on the stage. But then, things actually got a lot worse. Because what I realized was that as soon as we got our diplomas, they got their diplomas last. And that as soon as they called the first student up on this stage, and then they mentioned their grade point average, which they did not do for anybody out there, I noticed that when they called the first name of the first kid, their grade was not lower than a 90%, Randy. Not lower than a 90%. But then I really started to feel a little disappointed because of what I thought I accomplished in school up until that point. But then things got a lot worse for me, David. A lot worse for me, really, Janice. Because what I realized is that as they continued to call out names, the grades got higher and higher, Tom. And then I heard a 99.3, then I heard a 99.7, Tassos. And I thought to myself, how in the world could these grades be possible? But then I heard something, Randy, that I thought was impossible. Because there was one student up here, there was a young lady who was not called yet. And I knew her personally, I knew a lot about her. Actually, she wasn't really even in 12th grade. She was actually in 11th grade, Bob. And a couple of the other things that I noticed about her was the fact that if there was an award to be won, she won it. If there was a meeting to go to, she went. She was involved in everything, everything. If there was a sport to be played, she was a part of it. Matter of fact, the only sport she didn't play was basketball. But you know what? She ended up being the valedictorian, the #1 student in the class. And folks, Dave, Rick, you're not going to believe what she scored. Jim, she scored a 100%. A 100%. Do you know what that means? That means that she scored a 100 on every quiz, every test, every project, and every exam in order to get that grade. And that these students up on this stage had to work extremely hard in order to create those kinds of results. But folks, you don't really understand. Tassos, Bob, while I was giving giving it 100%. Well, I was just trying to fit in with the crowd. Those students were proud to be a part of a different crowd. While I was just trying to make it through high school, those students were trying to make it into the next school. Now, at this moment, this ceremony was no longer a celebration. It became a reality check because I knew at that moment, Heather, that I could have done a whole lot better than I actually did. Now, why did I tell you this story? Folks, I told this story to you this morning because I came here to share a message with each and every one of you in this room. And that message is, show up, step out, and shine. But I only have time to share with you the first part, and that's the show up part. And what does show up mean? Show up means do the best you can do in everything you do, Dave. It means give it everything you have on a daily basis, Tom. It means bring your best self, Randy, to every task at hand. Now, let me take you back to the story that I just shared with you folks. Now, I want you to look at the students on the stage, and then I want you to look at me. There's only one difference between them and people like me. Just one. And that one thing is this. You see, I showed up every day to school physically, Jerry. But really, that's it. But these students, they showed up. Not just physically, but mentally, spiritually, emotionally. They gave it everything they had. Now, folks, what you know about me is that I gave it 100%. I didn't give it 100% because I would have been on the stage. But I didn't give it 100% during all of my years in high school. Matter of fact, the other thing that you don't know that I'm going to share with you is that I barely gave it 80% during all of my years in school. But what you don't know about me, Jeff, is that when I graduated, I didn't have any plan for what I was going to be, what I was going to do, or where I was going to go. And that's what happens when you don't show up. Yeah, that's what happens. So why not instead show up? This is Rob Moore reminding you to show up, step out, and shine, because whatever it is that you want to do, Tom, if it is to happen for you, Janice, it is up to only you, fellow Toastmasters. Are you with me on this? Say yes.
Yes.
Now put your hands together and give yourself a round of applause for being a fantastic audience. Thank you.